All right, what's going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to episode 499, Talk About Buffalo podcast, part of the Blue Wire Network. I'm your host, Patrick Moran. Today is, we're taping this Monday, but this is dropping Tuesday, November 1st. As always on Tuesdays, I'm joined by my good friend, writer, podcaster, sports media personality, Joe Yerdon, man. What's going on, buddy? How you doing?
I'm doing great, Pat. It's the busy time of year, isn't it? It's fun, right?
We're
having fun.
Let me declare something right off the bat here before we even jump into any sports talk.
Okay.
It's November 1st. So we're taping this on Halloween, but this is dropping Tuesday. So it's November 1st.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to change a lifelong mindset that I've had this year. Today, in fact, my whole life, my attitude adamantly has always been, do not under any circumstances bring any Christmas shit to me until after the Thanksgiving holiday. No Christmas music, no Christmas decorations, no Christmas movies, no Hallmark stuff, any of that stuff. I don't want any of it until Thanksgiving has properly been celebrated. It's been my attitude my whole life, literally. I think that's going to change now, though. I think I'm going to declare today, November 1st, as the official start, at least in the Moran household, to Christmas season. It starts now.
Okay.
What do you think? Too early? You're too busy to even wrap. Joe's busy right now, by the way.
November,
he's too busy probably to wrap his head around that shit.
Dude, listen, November has October was a blur, and now November's here, and I'm like, wait, what the hell, man? Like, the time has gotten away from me. Listen, I can't. At some point, you have to stop fighting the Christmas seasonal creep, because it's a stupid fight to have. Because I've always been of the standard Thanksgiving's when it starts, but I mean, Jesus, it was the end of September. I saw Christmas stuff start to come out, which I'm just like, no, absolutely not. No, I was like, we still have friggin' Halloween coming up in like a month, and we're already moving on to Christmas. Like, come on, no, we're not doing that. So like, I'm not surprised. Like, I mean, there's no like party favors and crap for Thanksgiving. So it's not like you can, put out your Thanksgiving decorations or any of that stuff. Usually any decorations you have on Thanksgiving are basically handed down from past generations.
Yeah. Like, your great grandparents.
Right. You got the horn of plenty, you got the, all that stuff. But I don't know, man. My hang up on this goes back to when I was in radio, because one of the stations, I was in a radio, cluster. There were 7 stations under the roof. And one of the stations was the oldies station, which flipped to Christmas when it was Christmas time, all Christmas music all the time, which cool, whatever. People like that. So there was a day, and it was, I want to say it was Veterans Day one year, or like at least the observed Veterans Day, like that Monday. And there was a rumor that one of the competing stations, because there was, of course, competing stations have competing Christmas stations, because, Lord knows you have to get all those Christmas music ratings, I guess. But they would, but like they had their ears ready in case, because if they heard Christmas music coming out of that other station, they were ready to flip everything like in a second, which I'm like, that's insane. So like everybody was really tensed up, really crazy. And they're just like, as soon as they do it, we gotta flip the switch. And then sure enough, the other station, like it was like high noon. They're just like, all right, here comes Christmas time. And it's, it's November 10th or something like that. And like, I was watching all the engineers, all the techs, everybody going crazy, all the salespeople, because they had to, they had to make sure the ads were in the right spot, all that stuff. And like, even the DJs, on-air personalities were like, okay, we got to do this. It's going to be crazy. And I'm just like, oh my God, guys, like, relax. Like, I mean, if one station does it, you can do it the next day and be ready for it. It's fine. But they're like, no, we have to do it right now. And I'm like,
get in there. Yeah.
Oh God. So like that stuff drives me crazy when I see it, because it's basically, as soon as one person, or in this case, one company, one business, one whatever, pushes the Christmas button, everybody goes. So the sooner somebody goes to push the button, the sooner everybody else goes to follow along. And I'm just like, at some point it's going to be August, and we're going to be like, Christmas is around the corner. And I'm going to like, just get out of my face, please.
I've always gotten annoyed with premature Christmas celebratory stuff. And I don't know. It's not that I think Thanksgiving is a season. It's not. Thanksgiving is an event. It's a day. It's
Right.
turkey, it's family and friends, and it's in this case this year it's the Buffalo Bills and the Detroit Lions. So that's not a season. That's a day.
Right.
I'll tell you though. So this came about Sunday, and I don't know why. And I agree, man. I hate like Halloween shit goes up in August. And I was at Big Lots. I was doing everything possible, by the way, Joe, on Sunday to make the day go by faster. I don't know how you feel. How do you feel? Like right now, this is kind of a, it sounds like I'm being funny with you. I sort of am, but I'm also not. You're a Detroit Lions fan. Everybody knows that. You
Right.
really don't have a lot of Sunday and Monday night football games to really have to worry about when it comes to the Detroit Lions because they're not on prime time all that much. Anyway, when they are on that occasion, or even if they're not, if there's just a game you're really looking forward to seeing, I hate when the Bills, I wish the Bills played every week at 1:00 on Sunday. I hate when the Bills play a Sunday night football game. It's just, man, I mean, it is cool to be able to watch the red zone and, watch a bunch of different games because when the Bills are on, you're not doing that, of course.
Right.
But God, man, I was doing everything possible. I got up, I was running errands. I went out with my wife. We went out to like 3 or 4 different stores. Everything possible just to make the day go by faster, and it just doesn't work. It feels like it takes forever. But anyway, Big Lots. So one of the places I went to was Big Lots. And again, typically I'm like, get this shit out. It's way too early. They have Big Lots, like maybe a third of their store right now, at least the one in West Seneca, is dedicated to Christmas decorations. All the fake trees are up. All the outside lights are up. All kinds of stuff. But I'm walking through, I'm like, I don't know. For some reason, it just kind of struck me this year. I'm like, I think I'm feeling this, man. I went home. I asked my son, I said, when can we put up shit? He told me mid-November. It kind of feels like probably a little more closer.
I agree with him. I agree with him.
A little too early right now, November 1st.
Yes. I mean, look at the weather outside. It's not frightful. It's not it's not cold and delightful. Like, I mean, it's none of that stuff. It's not, we're not letting anything snow right now. So,
I can't believe I'm talking to you about Christmas when it's like literally as we're taping this, it's getting ready to be Halloween night.
You know what? I can't believe it either because I trounced your ass in the Christmas.
Yeah, you shouldn't. I should
have ruined the holiday for you.
You did last year.
Every Christmas, but we did Christmas polls for like each week in December, and I beat your face in.
You really did. It was embarrassing. I have to look now. Now because you said that impromptu here, I have to look. Yeah,
I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks. I think it was.
We did 3 in a row, and you went 3-0 against me. And I'm talking about the 35 draft that Joe and I do.
They weren't close either.
No, one of them was respectable. The other 2 were embarrassing. We did Christmas characters, and you beat me that week 58% to 42%, which far and away was the closest of the 3, by the way. And then we did Christmas songs, and you pulled 70% of the vote. And then we did Christmas movies, which was, that might be, I'm looking right now.
It's one of the biggest.
I think it is the biggest blowout that we've ever had in the history of our poll. And again, we've done over like 55 of these, more than a year's worth of these we've done.
Yes.
You pulled 89% of the vote that year. That week. You won 89% to 11, which last year I binged Christmas movies. I watched like 25 Christmas movies for the first time. So all that research did nothing. So you're right. I should hate Christmas because of you.
Right.
But I'm going to give it another go this year, man.
But the thing I was happiest about was you're like, dude, I'm ready for this poll. I've been watching all these movies. I was like, dude, you're gonna have too many crappy movies stuck in your head when we do this.
And you crushed
and
me.
that was completely the case. So like, I saw this one the other day. It was I liked it. It was really good. And I'm like, dude, nobody's heard of that movie. Like, what are you doing?
We got to bring the starting 5 draft back soon. I kind of missed that. It was something to talk about every week, not just when we do the draft, but also on Twitter. A lot of people, mainly at my expense, would have some fun with that. We'll bring that soon. We'll bring that back soon.
But we can't, because there's so much good sports stuff going on now. We can't just be like, well, let's stop talking about how great the Bills are, or how fun the Sabres are. We got to do a poll of I don't know, best bar food or something like that.
Well, speaking of sports stuff, did you enjoy being a Buffalo Bills fan for 1 week? By the way, I noticed in our little video setup here, if you're watching this on YouTube, by the way, make sure you subscribe, hit that like button if you are. That little red mini Bills helmet, I do not see it anymore.
Nope, it's gone.
So you weren't lying when you said you're a Bills fan for 1 week.
Listen, I had to word my tweet very carefully the night of the game because I was going to say here, it's like for one day only, go Bills. And I was like, no, 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 because that will get copied and screen captured and used against me on Thanksgiving like you wouldn't believe. So I was like, no, I have to put the date, everything, just to make it very clear. That day only. That no other date, just that one. I have, I get to say go Bills. So, but it was funny though, because I stopped by a place near me for like a nightcap, and people in there, they're like, oh, about the game. And I go, yeah, I was like, I wish they beat them by 50 more points. That would have been cool. And then people were just like, yeah, go Bills. I was like, yeah, go Bills.
Where'd you watch the game?
One more hour. I watched it over at Anchor Bar on Maple with a few friends. So it was not a bad spot. Like it's relatively quiet there, honestly, because I think people get spooked by the hours because it says it closes at 10, but they're not closing when there's a Bills game on. So but it was a good spot to be, and it's nice. And there was one guy there that was probably a little bit few too many cold pops into the night, and was coming around talking to everybody at the tables. So which was interesting. I don't know. He did a double take when he's like, "What do you mean you're not a Bills fan?" I go, "I'm a Lions fan." And he's like, "Oh, dude." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know. Just go away, please. Leave me alone."
I watched the game with my son. Stayed home.
Nice.
Didn't go out anywhere. Just watched with my son. Relaxed. I was impatient all day waiting for the game to start, but I also had this weird calmness going into the game, which I don't like that. I wanted to believe that Green Bay was that don't believe the hype. The hype was that Green Bay's nowhere near as good as Buffalo, that this was the game where Aaron Rodgers was going to play like the 2-time reigning MVP and everything was going to come together. Obviously, that never materialized. Before we even talk about the Bills, let me ask you this. Are you surprised that the Packers approached that game in such a, I don't really know any other way to say it. It was like in a cowardly kind of manner, man. I mean, they get down 3 scores and they're still pounding the football. They're running the football. It's like they threw in the white flag on the passing game. Now, look, I get it. Receivers are hurt and they're not that good when they're healthy. Okay. The Bills have a good pass rush, and the Green Bay Packers were missing one offensive lineman anyway. But it was like, again, you have one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game. And I hate Aaron Rodgers as a human being, I think, almost as much as you do, which is saying a lot.
Welcome to the party, pal.
Right. But he is still Aaron Rodgers, man. He's a game-changing quarterback. And it's one thing, if you're getting up on the Bills, or if you're going to come out and try to establish the run early, shorten the game, I get it. But it's 24-7. You go into the locker room at halftime and your strategy is to come out and just run the football and run it some more and short pass, quick screen, run. They got a field goal out of that long, 12-play drive or whatever.
It's like
start the third quarter.
8.5-minute drive or something.
Yeah. And then the Bills come right back and march on the field and they got the field goal right back.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, open it up now. You're down 3 scores. It felt like a very cowardly game plan. Jay Skursky of the Buffalo News put a tweet out. I want to make sure I read this because this is how little the Bills were worried about Green Bay running the football. Jay said, the Bills played nickel defense the whole game last night, talking about Sunday night. Teron Johnson played all 66 snaps, even when the Packers used 22 personnel, which is 2 running backs and 2 tight ends. That means 2 things. One, they trust Johnson 100%, and they weren't particularly worried about giving up rushing yards. That's the game in a nutshell. I mean, where was the aggression on the rare occasions where they did air it out? I thought Green Bay had some success, but it was like, was Aaron Rodgers afraid to get hit? Was he afraid to potentially throw in more interceptions? I don't know what it was. But before we even talk about the Bills, Joe, what was your take on just how Green Bay approached that game? Maybe I got it all wrong. Maybe that's the way you should play the Bills. What do you think? It just felt really weird to me.
I understand where they're coming from, because you want to chew up clock against the team that can score, in 3 plays. It's a lot how teams played against the Bills in the 90s, because, they played the K-gun offense. They rush to the line. They were just, get on and off the field in no time. And you're giving up a touchdown. I understand wanting to do that, to just kind of grind it to a halt, try to keep it close and stay within that. But
When you're down 3 scores though in the second half,
scores, you got to make an adjustment. Although it's tough to change your mind on that when your running back's pulling off 8, 9, 10 yards a carry, just because the Bills are like, yeah, whatever, dude, keep running. Like, we don't care. You want to chew up clock? Great. You're doing the job for us. Because listen, that's how they want to get back in the game. Let them. So I can get it kind of from Green Bay's side of it, but also the Bills are like, yeah, whatever, dude, just run. Like, they're daring them to pass, and they're just like, saying, go ahead. Yeah, we'll let you run all game, lose all that time. You're not going to be able to come back. And, unless something really stupid happens, then whatever, we'll still take care of it in the end anyways.
If you're protecting a lead, I get it. If you're in a close 1-score game in the second half and you're playing a team that on paper is better, I get it. I truly do. Von Miller said after the game, I was like, he said, this is a direct quote. I was like, hey, y'all got to pass the ball, right? He was just expressing shock that the Bills' mindset was, all right, we're going to keep our personnel out there with a nickel back. They play an extra defensive back. They weren't going to put in a third line back. They're like, all right, you can rip off some yards, but are you going to finish the drive? When are you going to get a holding penalty? When are you going to make a mistake? And that happened, several times with the Packers. It's just, I don't know. It was a really weird game, because if you would have told me, Joe, I know this because we talked a lot during the summer. We kept talking about how daunting on paper the Bills' first 7 games looked like, and if you would have told me in the beginning of September, the Bills are going to beat the Packers by double digits, I would have jumped out of my chair and signed that contract right then and there, and I would have been thrilled to do it. However, it's weird. Has the bar been raised so high with the Buffalo Bills right now that you go on national TV, the whole nation is watching, you win? Again, 10 points is not a lot, but it's still double digits. It's still 2 scores. And this was also a game, and I know you know this, the Bills were never in jeopardy of losing this game. No. It never felt like, this could get really dangerous right now. All that said, though, I don't know. I kind of felt a little bit empty. Maybe you, being a 1-week Buffalo Bills fan here, you wanted to see Green Bay just get pounded and embarrassed. I feel like they wasted an opportunity. Not that it matters, because they're 6-1, and they're 6-1 whether they win 50-3 or whether they win 10-3. They're still 6-1. It just felt a little, like after the game, it didn't even feel that much like a big victory to me, like I thought it would. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I get where you're coming from. Just because, it's a game you walk into knowing you're going to win, right? Hands down. I know there's a handful of people that are, I don't know, it's still Aaron Rodgers. He might do something. It's like, no, this guy, whatever quarterback was playing last night is a shadow of what Aaron Rodgers used to be, as far as I'm concerned. Like that. He threw 2 really good balls, and the one touchdown.
Dobbs made a great play.
That's an unbelievable catch. And Rodgers puts it in the one place where only Dobbs is going to get it. Great play. He would have to do that 5 more times to even threaten the Bills, because again, if you're going to keep, if you're right all over the place and, don't chew up any clock, and you keep letting the Bills offense go out, you're going to get burned. Like, that's flat out. And Allen didn't have a good game at all. It was
not the second half. That's for damn sure.
Well, there was a hint at it on the very first drive, that pass that he just kind of threw up there and almost got, was it Alexander? I think Alexander almost caught it and just like hit off his hands and goes on the ground or whatever. I forget who it was, but that was like it's Allen rolling out, and you're just like, oh, he's got a guy deep, and then he throws it, and it just kind of rainbowed in there, and it's like, oh no, anybody could camp under that one. It might have been one of the worst passes, including any interception he's ever thrown. It might have been one of the worst balls I've ever seen him throw. Not having an injury or not having anything going on or whatever. Because I think of that the one play against Miami this year, like that would have been the easy score where he just duffed it into the ground or whatever.
Yeah, on 4th down too. That was Isaiah McKenzie. He was wide open. He just didn't get anything on it. It functioned like an arm punt kind of, but it wasn't a turnover on downs. It's just, you could have just handed the ball right to Green Bay on the opening drive. And right there, it was kind of like, I wonder what's going on. And it seemed pretty clear
last night that they told Allen, do not run. Like, do not take that ball and run if it's, just kind of a silly situation where we don't need it.
Sure.
Just, sit back on it, try to make that pass and
Felt
see
that way.
Right. So
good point.
I mean, I get it. I get it, but also it's just, I don't know, man. Like you walk away with the win, but I get feeling kind of crappy about it just because it's like, oh man, I thought they were going to put 40 on these clowns. And then, they don't, but like, dub's a dub,
I was salivating a little bit at one point because it did look like the Bills were going to drop 40 to 50 on them.
Mm-hmm.
And there was images of Aaron Rodgers on the bench by himself, just looking miserable, and I wanted that
at any point in the game.
Yeah, I wanted a big Bills blowout. I wanted Jordan Love in the game for Green Bay because it was out of reach for them. And I wanted Aaron Rodgers looking miserable on the bench. That's what I was hoping to get. Maybe that's why I kind of felt a little bit empty about this win. But look, when it comes to Josh Allen, it's okay to, and I call it, I don't want to say I call it shit because I think for the most part, people agree. They just don't like to hear it. They don't like to read it, even if it's true. But it's okay to criticize a player's performance on a specific night, man. And don't make you no hater. I think through the first 8 weeks of the season, I think Josh Allen, if the MVP ballot was cast today, I think it would be almost near unanimous. Jalen Hurts will get some votes, but I think Josh Allen absolutely wins MVP right now if the season ended. He's been the MVP, quite possibly the best player in the NFL so far this year. And by the way, the Bills have beaten some pretty good teams. You know what I mean? You look at the most NFL power rankings, the Bills have beaten at least 3 or 4 teams that are on that top 10. Anyway, again, they win by double digits, despite him, quite frankly, being uncharacteristically bad. I mean, and you brought up a good point because I think you have something to this. He might have been told, don't take off and run that football. Maybe he was told that. Maybe he just decided that he wasn't going to do it. Because both of those, one of those interceptions, I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Why did you not run?
Right.
Another one, it wasn't an interception. It was an overthrow to Kumaro where he could have easily just ran for it. I mean, it was an eligible guy downfield because I think he was supposed to run, which kind of tells you the guy was blocking downfield. It just, you cannot have 2 inexcusably bad interceptions like Josh Allen did in the second half and make some of these bad decisions and get away with it all the time.
Yeah.
And no matter how good you are against a different team, if that was the Chiefs, might have been a different outcome in the game. And I get it. Look, man, I'm not concerned about Josh Allen. I got literally zero concern about him. He'll learn. He'll get better because of it in different situations. The great ones do that, but that could have been costly on Sunday night. Josh Allen, this was his worst half of football by far that second half.
Yeah, and I do have. I just thought of this now. A couple of times he ran in the first half. He took a couple of good pops.
Yeah,
like
that 20-yard run
where he almost ran it in. He almost ran it in for a touchdown. He took a pretty heavy hit there.
Yep.
And I wonder if at that point, he get back to silent. Hey, great job. It's like Major League. Hey, great job. Don't ever fucking do it again.
Nice catch, Hayes. Don't ever fucking do it again.
Yeah. So I mean, I mean, geez, Green Bay seemed to be. They were ready to anticipate him running defensively because it was pretty good. The Kumaro play that you're talking about. I love the replay that they had from behind Allen, showing him like rolling out, and you see Kumaro kind of take off, up the sideline. You're like, oh, okay, the dude's wide open. And you're like, well, you probably could have ran there. And right before he threw it, you see like a couple guys chase him, but then somebody shook off the blocker or player in front of him, and suddenly there's 3 guys getting ready to converge on him, and you're like, oh, okay, that's why he doesn't run the ball there. I mean, could he juke him? Sure, right, probably, maybe. Like, I mean, who knows? But when it's 3 guys standing in your way, you're probably the better move there is to just kind of eat it, or I don't know, complete the pass. Right? But it's things like that where you take a couple of hits early, and then maybe you're just kind of like, yeah, this game ain't worth doing that. It's like, try to run around and be crazy with it because I mean, listen, with all the trash that was being talked by everybody. I mean, I'm not saying Green Bay was going to cheap shot anybody. They certainly weren't going to do that. But if you get a free shot at somebody and they got the ball, you're going to take that. Sure. You're going to take that shot. So, and listen, I'm not going to give Green Bay any credit for anything. Under no circumstances do I have to hand it to them. But like,
wow.
I get not wanting to kind of, give your guys opportunities to be in a position to take some unnecessary hits.
Sure. And look, man, I'm being nitpicky about the Bills, although a lot of it is warranted. They did score 24 points in the first half. And when the game was not, when the game was still in doubt to some extent, if it ever was, the Bills offense looked plenty good. They scored 24 points and a half. Okay. I think they took their foot off the gas in the second half and it cost them a little bit. There's things to bitch about. Again, I think the bar is so high right now with this football team that when you go out and you only beat a team like Green Bay by 10, you kind of got some issues. The defense did not tackle well. If there's been one problem with the Bills this year, besides their own self-inflicted errors, which seems to be a problem at times, they turned the ball over 4 times against the Rams. Didn't matter. Still won by 3 touchdowns. But point being is they shoot themselves in the foot a lot. The tackling, they miss a lot of tackles, man. And I like Tremaine Edmonds this year. Again, he's a very hot topic guy when it comes to the Bills. I thought he sucked on Sunday night. I thought he was horrible. He was not getting off blocks. He was making he had a career high 16 tackles. Well, guess what? I bet you 13 of them were 8 yards or farther behind from the line of scrimmage. He was shooting the wrong gaps. I thought he was terrible. Shit happens though. But I keep coming back to this, Joe. If I'm a Green Bay fan, I'm pissed. I look at it this way. Josh Allen is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers might not be what he was, but guess what? 12 months ago, 10 months ago, Aaron Rodgers was the MVP of the National Football League. Less than a year ago. And I get it. If Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis and Isaiah McKenzie were all hurt and they weren't playing, because that's basically what was happening with the Packers receiving corps. And you had Shakir and Jake Kumaro and whoever the hell, I don't give a shit. Isaiah Hodges, name somebody. I don't really give a shit. My point is this. And you got a quarterback as talented as Josh Allen, and you're down 3 scores against the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field, and you're just pounding Singletary and Cook and Zach Moss time and time again because you're having some success running the ball, but you're down 3 scores, I'd be losing my goddamn mind.
Yeah.
Like, where is the sense of urgency? There was none with the Packers. I'll tell you, they're done. They're done this year.
Yeah.
They're done. I'm
telling you,
known they were
2-score loss to the Jets at Lambeau Field told me enough about them.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned. And honestly, how much of the Green Bay not throwing the ball is Rodgers being a total weirdo who never trusts his receivers? So when you get further down the depth chart, he's like, nope. Like, I don't trust any of these guys to make a play for me. So whatever, like, I'll throw it up there, once every now and again, but like, whatever. I'm not gonna, I can't get down with these guys. I mean, he's that type of weirdo who would be like that. It's just, Green Bay never gave him a top receiver for so long. And now he's just kind of like indifferent. He's whatever. Like, they brought Randall Cobb back, like, after 3 years in Dallas or whatever it was, 3-4 years in Dallas. And then was like, this dude's next to done. And I mean, he's out, he's out injured, but like, that's the dude you got to bring back as like a security blanket for him. Like, come on, man. You know what?
You look at the Packers right now and you realize sometimes you see these big, sexy, juicy, meaty trades in the offseason. You're like, oh, goddamn. You look at like Seattle. They won that trade with Russ Wilson. Denver is going to be paying a lot of money for a guy who's not a good quarterback anymore. And Seattle got a lot for him in terms of draft capital and cap relief. Right. That's a win. You look at Green Bay and trading Devontae Adams to the Raiders. That was a double L. Yeah. Everybody lost. The Packers are not the same team. Aaron Rodgers is not the same quarterback without Devontae Adams, and we found that out. Devontae Adams is not the same wide receiver without Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, and we found that out. He already is unhappy with the Raiders. He would do anything, I'm sure, to be back with Green Bay right now. Just sometimes you got to be careful. Making that big splashy move, that can backfire, man. That's why I think the Packers are toast. Who's going to help them? Who's going to come in and help this offense? Alan Lazard make that much of a difference because he was out? No. So who was like that one tight end he kept throwing to all night? What's his name?
Robert Tonyan. Yeah, Robert Tonyan. Like,
pretty good.
That's your security blanket. Like, but it's like it's all 5-yard outs and 5-yard
right.
outs.
Yeah, for sure. One last thing about this game too. So I got to say this because you could say this almost every game this year if you're a Bills fan, especially. I mean, you got your Josh Allen, and Josh does what Josh Allen does. And Stephon Diggs, what more can you say about this guy at this point? Von Miller always finds a way to make an impact. Which, by the way, that 4th down run where they stopped him on 4th and 1, he literally took the right tackle and drove him into the running back in the backfield. That's what made that play. But anyway, you come to expect it. You know what you're going to get with those guys. You're an observer, although you were a Bills fan for this game anyway. But Matt Milano, dude, this guy is such a good football player. He's always around the ball. He makes these tough physical tackles. He's playing at an all-pro level this year.
Yeah.
And again, you got Vaughn, you got Stephon, you got Josh. I'm going to tell you right now, there's not many linebackers in the NFL, as far as I know anyway, from what I've seen, that are playing better football than Matt Milano. This is a Matt Milano appreciation podcast episode today because this guy's just balling, man. He's been one of the best linebackers in the league. He was sensational again on Sunday night.
Yeah, I mean, he's impressed every week. I mean, he's everywhere. He's in pass coverage, he's run stop, and he's doing like all the stuff you want from your top linebacker. I think it's everything that people want to see out of Tremaine Edmonds, but it just doesn't happen that much, or
no, doesn't.
Ever. Like, I mean, I don't ever think of Edmonds in coverage being, a guy that's going to be able to take out a tight end or, pick up a receiver going across the middle or whatever. Milano does, though, because he's good at reading the quarterback. He's good at reading the plays straight up out of the backfield. Like he knows where that play is going almost instantaneously. So, and he's never in the wrong spot either. Like he just seems to be right where the play is going to be, or where the play is going to go. He seems to know where it's at. And man, oh man, and like, I know he took like a team friendly deal to come back. What, last year? Was it before last
2
season?
years.
2 years.
That was before last season. Correct. This was year 2 of his deal. Yeah.
So it's, but he's a guy who can absolutely cash in when that deal's, I don't know if it's up this year or next year.
He's got 2 more years after this.
Yeah.
He's in line to get another raise the way he's playing.
Yeah. I mean, it's really impressive to see how he's done, especially from the get-go, because he was like the backup guy for like the first year or two. And he'd get like every few snaps or something like that, you'd see him be like, okay, that's a good play. Then there'd be a play where it's not so good. And you're like, okay, well, it's the ups and downs with this guy. But once he started getting more time, and he put a lot of work into his game too, he's just gotten better and better each year. It's really impressive to see a guy like that step up and really kind of jump up into it and become a guy on the defense. Because outside of Buffalo, people aren't normally thinking about him, but if they're, if your favorite team's playing against Buffalo and you hear the announcers just going nuts about him, you're like, who the hell is this guy? And it's like, no, he's been awesome all season long. And you're like, wow, okay, well, how about it? Why do I never hear about this guy? And it's like, well, now you do.
I think you're going to for sure when the season's over, because I think he's going to get some Pro Bowl and potentially some All-Pro accolades. But anyway, I'm going to take a real quick break.
Hang on. Are we going to be caring about the Pro Bowl this year?
There isn't even a Pro Bowl anymore, by the way.
Right. Well, I know, but like,
well, the honor.
I mean,
I guess.
I just remember all the BS last year, people crying about, Poyer and Micah Hyde not going to the Pro Bowl. I was like, come on, man. Like,
I get it. I do.
They get so far down the list that like you and I get the call for the Pro Bowl. It's like, hey man, we're going to Hawaii. Great.
Back here with Joe Yerdon. By the way, so we are taping this on Monday afternoon. The NFL trade deadline is 4 p.m. on Tuesday. You're probably listening to this sometime early-ish on Tuesday. As of this recording, there's been no big trades around the NFL as of this recording. I think there's a decent chance that the Bills make a move before Tuesday. I know running back is the hot topic right now, and there was a report from Jay Glazier, a very credible insider, that the Bills were calling interested in Alvin Kamara, but the Saints don't want to deal him, so I don't expect anything to come of that. Real quick, before we move on to at least a couple of minutes of Sabres talk here, based on, so Micah Hyde's out for the year, but they've known that all season, and I think Damar Hamlin, for the most part, at worst, he's been sufficient, and at times he's been really good. I think the Bills haven't missed a beat with Hyde out. As crazy as that sounds, because Micah Hyde is such a great safety, but they've been fine. Jordan Poyer has been battling injuries all year. He had an elbow injury, the ribs. Now he's hurt his elbow again. He left the game on Monday. He's having an MRI. We're taping this on Monday. We still, as of this recording, do not know the results. I would surmise, Joe, that if I'm Brandon Beane right now, maybe even more so than a running back, and I don't have any specific players in mind. I know there's some out there that do. So without naming a specific player, I would not be surprised at all. And I certainly wouldn't be upset if the Bills find a safety to trade for. Because if Jordan Poyer is going to be out, I'm fine with Hamlin and Poyer. I'm not fine with Hamlin and Jaquan Johnson two young kids back there. We saw it against Miami. It's the only time that's happened this year. Don't want to have to live with that down the stretch. And I know Trey will be back, but still, you want to have at least one of your two safeties to have more experience. Jaquan Johnson is a very aggressive defender, but he also is, he's the kind of guy who'll get beat. And I don't want to see that. So I hope that the Bills, if they make any trade right now, I would prefer for it to be a safety. And I do think running back is still a possibility. They ran the ball very well in the first half against Green Bay, kind of slowed down in the second half. James Cook looked pretty good, but I think the mindset might be, if something happens to Singletary down the road, down the stretch, I don't think that they want to entrust the entire running game to a rookie. That's just how I feel. So I can still see a running back. Do you see anything going on in the next 24 hours or so as we tape this? Football's different now too. It used to be, there never used to be trades. Now it's kind of becoming like hockey and baseball, where there's movement deadline day.
Yeah, I remember last year where everybody was like, they need to pick up another lineman. They have to add another lineman because they need help, because guys were banged up and their things were looking a little spotty in some spots, and they didn't move. They didn't make a move for a lineman or an O lineman. Like, they didn't, just stayed away from it. I wonder if that would be the case this time. There's a very obvious need to make sure your safety position is covered, because I imagine they're going to know how Poyer is before the deadline hits. I imagine,
sure,
without it, they probably already know what it is now, I would bet. So I would expect them to be after a safety. I think it's too much of a need, and too much playing without a net, high wire act without a net with,
sure.
Because you're talking about putting, rookie guys, young guys back there, which, hey, they're playing great. And McDermott and Frazier are great at finding D-backs and safeties and coaching them up. Like, they're
absolutely
that is one of the biggest strengths that those guys have, coaching wise. Like, they are just so good at finding guys that have the talent. And that goes to Bean too. Like, they find the guys that have the talent, and you have the coaches that can take guys that are already at a pretty good level and then coaching them up and bringing them up a little bit more. But if you get to a point where, say Poyer's out for a while, and one of these other guys gets banged up, then you're talking picking up some dude off, somebody's practice squad, or, something like that, where you might not know what
there's trouble if Poyer's out. Yeah.
So, I mean, and especially because, they're going to get Trey White back eventually, whenever that is. So, I mean, it's great for the corner position. I mean, absolutely a need. Dane Jackson's played great. Terry Johnson's look good. But those guys are really good because they know they got guys behind them that can take care of business.
Yep.
So, and if you got rookies back there, again, this isn't a team that, has like pockets where, there's some guys that are just going, I don't know. I don't trust this guy, or this guy kind of sucks. So whatever. These guys believe in each other, and it's very obvious watching, both sides of the ball, especially on defense. But you're talking really young players back there who you don't totally know, and you don't really have an honest to God scouting report on them either, because you don't know how they're going to handle, if they got to try to corral some deep wide out or something like that. Like, I just think about, when they play Miami in December, and again, forget all Tua nonsense. That offense is really freaking good, and Waddle and
Tyreek, they're dangerous.
Yeah, like, it's those guys. And if they see two, green safeties out there, you can coach them up, but like, the talent is going to overwhelm you at that point.
Yeah, I 100% agree, man. We'll know, people again are listening to this hopefully sometime on Tuesday. The Bills might have made a trade already. I would be surprised if they don't make at least one trade, whether it's running back or whether it's safety. Maybe it's both, or maybe an offensive tackle, something. I would be shocked if the Bills stand pat. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Chiefs or the Dolphins try to add a good pass rusher, just like when the Bills had to get Von Miller to help them get past the hump that they perceive that they need to beat Kansas City. There's probably teams out there thinking right now, well, we got to do a better job of getting after Josh Allen.
Yeah,
that's how we're going to beat the Bills. So I think other teams in the conference that consider themselves contenders are going to make some kind of move in these next 24 hours. And I hope that the Bills do a little something to keep up with the Joneses.
And
If not now, then when? I mean,
Yeah.
this team's as good as anyone in the NFL. Why not add to it when you get a chance?
Yeah, and I mean, I look at what the Rams did last year and bringing in Von Miller, but like
Mhm.
they're in a different spot because that was, the team was a little bit older. You got Stafford, you don't know how much longer you're gonna have him for. Your team is already really good, but you knew if you added a guy like that to your team, and like they made a couple of really big moves and just basically mortgaged the next few years of draft picks to make sure that they got the guys and they could win the Super Bowl, and they did it. Like that's the point that they were in. The Bills, I think in everybody's mind are in that kind of position, but they're not going to mortgage picks away. They're not going to just hand out, give out a giant, make a giant
Right.
trade to get
Agreed.
a guy to be like, this will put us clearly over the top. And then, okay, you win it. I mean, obviously winning it would be vitally important and nobody would give a shit about any draft picks given up if it gets you a Super Bowl win. So I get that point of it, but that's not quite how this group operates, because they don't want to just pitch away future, have future weakness because they went out and made, some giant move that, again, it might put you over the top, but if it doesn't, then, you're not really looking at, being able to get that help from within that they've been very good about creating in the past. So I don't know. I think it's one of those, damned if you do, damned if you don't things for the Bills. But I mean, for me, if I'm being safety's the spot I'm going to try to address. Running back, I don't know. People hate the running back situation for whatever it is, and it seems like every time Devin Singletary, it's like his job might be in danger. He just has a really good game, and you're like, oh well, forget it, never mind.
Yeah, like you can live with him. I will say though, when I heard that report from Jay Glazier, I just thought in my mind, I'm like, and I don't think it's going to happen because I think they'll want too much. Plus, I think the Saints winning on Sunday and they're playing in a horrible NFC South.
Yeah.
Like they literally could very easily win that division because I think 8-9 might win that division. 10-7 is a lock to win that division this year. But anyway, I think the Saints winning hurt any small chance of that deal happening. But
also Ingram got hurt too.
And Ingram got hurt. Yes.
Like,
so you're pretty much
degree MCL sprain. So that's
he's out 3 to 4 weeks minimum. And then you trade Kamara. If you're a Saints fan, you're like, all right, so you're just throwing in the towel on a season and playing in a very bad division. That said, though, I can't. If Alvin Kamara joined the Buffalo Bills in that offense, it would almost be unfair. It would be unfair. You got to be shitting me right now. Devin Singletary's a nice player, but if you put Alvin Kamara in this Bills offense with Diggs and Gabe Davis and Knox and Josh Allen, I mean, come on. Are you kidding me?
The biggest weakness right now for the Bills offense is anything inside the 20-yard line. Again, the red zone stuff is, I mean, that's an actual problem for them right now for whatever reason. I mean, again, it's nitpicking because they've been so good, but those are the situations in the big games, against the good teams that you have to cash in.
Sure.
You get an Alvin Kamara as part of that, I'd start printing up the Super Bowl title, title T-shirts and everything. Man.
It would be
a circus of touchdowns. Out
there. Would. One last thing too, by the way, you're got a bone to pick with your Detroit Lions over there. I thought you guys.
I got a bone to pick with Bills fans for not backing my team. It's all of your fault. They blew that game against Miami. It's not your fault.
That's Detroit Lions football. They're not winning games, but they're close and they're competitive and they're fun to watch. So. Kind of like the Sabres in a little bit of a way.
Your definition of fun is different than mine.
What's your definition
in this
fun?
case?
Getting W's?
No. My version of fun with the Lions is
playing
not
defense?
watching them and ignoring them. So
I watched a lot of the game, man.
They already played their best week of the year. It was the bye week. They can't lose. Can't lose the bye week. So it's the best week of the year.
Their offense is fun to watch. But anyway, that was a game. That was a game that they had control of, and they would have did the Bills a huge favor. They would have put Miami 3 games back.
They never had
control on the scoreboard. They were,
buddy. Look, 3, 4, 5 touchdowns. They're not in control of anything because is there still time on the clock? Yes. Nothing is locked down. Nothing is locked. And I got a bone to pick with freaking NBC last night because and it might not be their fault, but one of those ads where it was like so-and-so let it come back against blah 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 to win it. And they did it with the Vikings Lions game, which happened a month ago. And they're like, the Vikings move them to first place in the NFC North. I'm like, guys, are you doing this to spite me? Because I'm watching this game. Like, I watched them lose that game a month ago. Like, give me a friggin' break. Just me giving the finger to the TV in the middle of Anchor Bar, and they're escorting me out of the building, something like that. But I very audibly said "F you" to seeing that. I was like, oh, F out of here. Shit. Anyway, sorry.
No.
You just like ranting about my team. I should let you rant about my idiot team.
Well, I think that they're at least offense. They're horrible on defense, although they got a couple good pass rushers, but they're at least fun to watch on offense. And in a way, it kind of reminds me, segueing into the Sabres, that I think the Sabres remain a fun team to watch. They're competitive, but I mean, for now anyway, the Sabres are winning games, and so they're 5-3 through 8 games as we tape this. They're playing Detroit on Monday night. We're taping this before, so we don't know how that's going to play out, which, by the way, we did this last week, and we talked about how great the Sabres looked on that West Coast Sabres After Dark trip. Then they went and laid a complete egg and shit the bed in Seattle. They ran for the bus that game to get back home. Anyway, the Sabres are in action on Monday night before we tape this against Detroit. But 5-3 so far this year. And Saturday, an exciting come-from-behind win, 4-3 overtime win over the Chicago Blackhawks. Tage Thompson, Victor Olofsson each had 2 goals. I'm going to be honest with you. I watched every single second of Sabres After Dark, the 4-game swing. I missed a lot of the Montreal game because of work, and Saturday I just had other plans, so I actually did not watch the game. I saw the highlights afterwards. Looked like a fun game for you to be in the crowd covering. Before I ask you a question, this is not even a question. It's a stat. We talk about the Eastern Conference and how good it is. I'm looking at the standings as we tape this on Monday, okay? So the Sabres have 10 points. And they are tied for 3rd in the Atlantic. So if the playoffs started today, they'd actually would be in.
They did, yeah.
But here's the funny thing.
Top the count.
Here's the funny thing. They'd be in the playoffs right now today. But also, literally, they are 3 points out from being second last in the entire conference.
Yeah.
That's how good this conference pretty much is from top to bottom, where on Monday, you're in the playoffs. On Thursday, you're the second worst team in your entire conference points-wise. That's how stacked this conference is. I just wanted to point that out. But anyway, the Sabres remain an entertaining product, Joe, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. The Chicago game was fascinating because it's a little bit of a parallel with the Bills against Green Bay. Because Chicago's horrible. I don't care what their record is. They're bad. Like I get like they have 10 points as well. They're 4-3-2. So it's pretty similar to what's going on with Buffalo, but like, that's a bad team.
Sure.
That is a bad team. Taves looked done. He looked cooked in that game. And I love Jonathan Taves. He's a fantastic player. And the only time I noticed him was when he took the holding penalty late in the 3rd period that led to the Sabres starting overtime with a power play. And then, you have 2 cannoneers on the at the circles ready to blast home a winner. And sure enough, it was Olofsson that did it. But Taves looks rough. I mean, he's had a good season, but like, he looked rough that game. Kane had a couple of moments. They got there's a lot of really young dudes on that team. The goalie looked great, but that was his first start of the season. He'd just gotten called up, which, I guess a lot of Sabres fans would be like, yeah, that figures. So they get the backup. It's not even the backup. It's the number 3 guy, and he almost steals it. But the Sabres played possibly the worst period of hockey, and that includes the Seattle game in the 2nd period of that game against Chicago.
Oh, wow.
Really? Horrible period. And it was one of those things where you look back on the stats, you're like, Jesus, like, no wonder why Chicago was able to jump ahead, because just total crap. I mean, and Granato switched things up for the 3rd period. He switched them kind of at the end of the 2nd. He put Opposo with Thompson and Skinner, moved Tuck down, kind of shifted things around with the defense a little bit. And sure enough, everything started to click. And, Skinner makes an unbelievable pass to Thompson on the game winner. Thompson scoring both goals, like crashing the net, being right around the net. Kind of out of character for, everything was kind of out of character for everybody that game. But the fact was, they played like crap, still got a W, and, can live to tell the tale. And those are games that in the past, you play a bad period like that, it hangs over into the 3rd period, and they're probably not coming back.
Sure.
That's kind of how the previous years would have gone with that team, but they don't give up. I mean, they turned it on Chicago in the third. Like they owned the third period. So it was just a matter of time before they scored, honestly. But which is the response you want to see after playing a completely dog crap period. Like, you want to see the team just be like, yeah, no, we're not doing that again. Instead of letting it, kind of create a malaise with everybody. And then you're just kind of like, well, we were bad that period. I guess we're going to be bad now. And Chicago gets to skate all over you. But like, Chicago was pretty bad. I mean, Chicago wasn't good that second period either. Like, that's the crazy part. They played bad. Buffalo's worse than they were in the second. So, to be able to have a game like that where, they weren't at their best, they absolutely weren't at their best, but got a dub. That's what matters. You look back, you got your 2 points, and you get to be happy about it.
Sure. And I look at the record and I look at the totality so far of this season. Again, 5-3 through 8 games, tons of stuff on the positive side. And we've already talked about a lot of it, and it's obvious. Darlene and Tuck, Thompson starting to come on. The goaltending's been very good. We know that. What I do like is that they're still winning and being competitive despite some of the young kids, I don't want to say, struggling to an extent. Owen Power has been very up and down from what I've seen with my own eyes and from what I read from guys like you and others and listen to, inconsistent. Let me state this completely to be expected. Guy's 20 some games into his NHL career. Don't expect him to come in and be a Norris candidate right now. I get that. So he's up and down. A couple of young forwards, Krebs and Quinn. They've been in and out of the lineup already. They each only have 1 assist through their first 6 games each this season. So, you want to see them get on the board, although Quinn did have a goal that was called back because of Middlestat in Seattle.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, that sounds kind of, and then obviously the injuries to Samuelson and Yokihiro are definitely hurting this blue line right now. And, the pairings and everything. But I'm not going to ask you if there's concern about Power, because it's just a stupid question. But what are you seeing from him right now that you say, all right, this kid's got a lot of work to do to be the kind of player that ultimately we all think he's going to become?
I made a very bold proclamation on Maintenance Day this week, which if you haven't listened to this week's episode, please do. It's not totally out of date. now that they played a game that they played Monday night, it's still good. But my bold proclamation was that we were going to be talking about a big change in Owen Power, about how good he's been, honestly. Because I look at that Chicago game and I look, you go over the number. I mean, you can watch it and just be like, I don't know about this. Power's 19 years old. Was playing in his 16th NHL game on Saturday. 16. That's it. And he had essentially an AHL guy as his defense partner in Cale Clegg, which I know a lot of people might be like, who's that? But Power and Clegg were a very good pair in that game. Like the shot numbers were outstanding. The scoring chance numbers were very good. And that's a 19-year-old and a guy who's, basically a tweener between the NHL and the AHL as a pairing. And they operated as the number 2 pairing for a good bit of that game. Like, that's, I mean, if you told people going into it, like, that's going to be your number 2 pair for a game. And, they're set up to play that way against Detroit on Monday. I think a lot of people would be like, I don't know, man, you're asking a lot of Owen Power to do that. Sure lived up to it as far in my eyes. Because I mean, his talent is superior to Clegg's, all that stuff. It's just the maturity level and the age and all that that's different. But I mean, it's a lot of like what we talk about with Cousins, where a lot of the stuff, the really good stuff that he does, doesn't show up in the box score. And yeah, it's not like you have to go mining for numbers to find good stuff to kind of prove a point. You don't necessarily have to do that with Power, but sometimes you need to take a deeper look when it comes to defensemen to see how they're doing. And to my eyes, Power looked pretty good. And when I looked at the numbers, the numbers backed it up. So I'm not feeling any kind of negativity about him. I know people want the points, but it's the way he's playing and the offensive jump that he had in that game. I saw him taking the puck, doing a lot of Dahlin-like things against Chicago. I saw him taking the puck in deep, he sees an opportunity to get in there to try to get a goal. He's going for it. He's a lot more confident with the puck now, and I think he's got his feet underneath him now. Like, I mean, it's an adjustment. Like, and Don Granato told us, Monday morning, not everybody goes into the season in mid-season form. Like, you're asking a lot of anybody to be able to be that way. And certainly for a guy Power's age, you're just still getting used to being in the NHL. But to see some of the stuff that he was doing, I think we're, and this is, again, it's tough to do that when he's playing with guys that should be in Rochester, but I think we've got to, and this could bite me in the ass immediately, but I think we're looking at a big opportunity and a big opening for him to really kind of break out. And I think we're on the verge of that. I think the same thing for Jack Quinn too. I think Quinn's got goals coming very soon.
Before I let you go, one last question here. We talked, Samuelson's hurt. Jokiharju was hurt. Gonna be out for a while. The defense, there are a couple guys, like you said, that belong in Rochester, quite frankly, right now. They're doing the best they can with what they have. Do you see a trade? We're talking about the Bills or the trade deadline coming up later today if you're listening on Tuesday. I mean, that's obviously not the case with the Sabres, but do you see them potentially? You see Kevin Adams going out and trading maybe for a defensive depth guy anytime soon?
I could see it. I think there's a possibility of that, but you have to be mindful of what your roster is going to be once guys get back, because Jokiharju is looking at maybe being back on the ice within a week. So he's going to be back, maybe in 2 weeks, in 2 weeks' time. I mean, the injury he had, Granato described it as like he has a fracture behind his nose, which is like broken sinuses or something, like broken sinus.
Sure, yeah.
Oh, God, like if a puck comes flying at my head, just put me down like a horse with a broken leg. Just, it's enough. I can't imagine having broken sinuses. Oh, God. But he said Granato said the smile's coming back. He's feeling better. But as far as when he gets on the ice, he said whether it's 3 or 4 days or 6 or 7 days, it'll be sometime in that area. So get him back skating, practicing in a week. You're looking at things being okay. More okay anyways, because you're talking about, you've got three guys that should be in Rochester that are up right now, because Lyubushkin's dealing with a little nagging injury as well. So that's, all kinds of stuff is just kind of like it's a bunch of little fires have popped up, have piled up, and now it's a bit of a blaze. But I think if there's a deal to be had, I can certainly see Adams making it, just because it'll give you more security. It'll allow some of these guys to stay in Rochester, because you want Rochester to have these guys. You think about the development side of things down there. I mean, if somebody else gets hurt, knock on wood, God forbid, if somebody else gets hurt against Detroit, which I might be talking about it or just ignoring it, but you're looking at Oskari Laaksonen being the only guy they have in Rochester on an NHL deal, because they called up Jeremy Davies on Monday afternoon. So you've gotten well down the path with injuries, because they went and signed a bunch of dudes to make sure that they had the depth so that they didn't have to worry about this. But Rochester already had 2 guys injured as it was, and one of them is a guy that probably would have been called up already by Buffalo in the first place. So it's it's an issue to have. But if you go out and acquire a guy who is an NHL level player, how does it work once everybody's back healthy? Because he's probably sitting out a bunch at that point. And then, which, hey, it's a good problem to have, but you're looking at, it was already a kind of a crowded group to begin with, because you're looking at 7 or 8 guys that could have been on this team right away. But I don't know. It's very tough, because in my mind, in the fantasy GM mind, I think, Anders Bjork for a defenseman, boom, done, get it done. Well, what happens when a forward gets hurt? Okay, what are you doing then? How does that work at that point? Because you've got you have a guy in already backing him up in the NHL level, but what do you got behind him? You've got nothing but kids that you need playing in Rochester.
Sure.
So you're not going to kind of rob Peter to pay Paul in that case. So it's a tough spot. It's a tough spot because they're not going to give up draft picks for, to get a guy. They're not going to do any of that stuff. So it's a very difficult spot to be in. But but Adam said, he goes, if there's something that makes sense, we'll look into it. But right now it's the classic. People are looking to throw you anchors instead of life preservers.
By the way, I know real quick here, Sabres fans, probably most of them ain't going to like this, but I don't know if because the Bills are playing on Sunday against Green Bay, but if you happen to watch the Vegas Golden Knights there, your boy, former Buffalo Sabre, Jack Eichel, holy shit, man. That was one of the wildest overtime goals I've ever seen.
Yeah.
He skated with that puck forever.
Yeah.
That's like, God, that's the player that, man, I loved having in Buffalo. Again, I'm not complaining. I'm a Tuck guy. I'm a Krebs guy.
Yep.
Also could be good. It could be a win-win for both teams. But Vegas 8-2. Eichel's got 10 points. He's healthy. 10 points, 10 games, 4 goals already. That was a sexy goal, man. You just got sometimes you just got to give it up. Even if he's the enemy now, you got to give it up, man. That was just an absolutely gorgeous
it was super to watch, and it's the kind of thing we'd seen from him here. I mean, we've seen him do that stuff before here. I don't know that he might have scored one similar, but not like that. Not one where he dangled everybody on the ice, and credit to his teammates to make sure that they gave him a clear path to be able to, because 3-on-3 in overtime, everybody's 1-on-1. Everybody's manned up. So if you get like basically an isolation play like in the NBA, get him isolated, he's got the speed to get around everybody. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. And Connor Hellebuck's a hell of a goalie for Winnipeg, and sure, he could have done something a little different there to make sure that doesn't happen, but elite players make elite plays, man. And Eichel's an elite player. People hate hearing that. People hate hearing it. People hated me retweeting that goal last night, but geez, give a guy credit. I mean,
it was amazing.
It's the classic trade where both teams win, and both teams are going to think that they're, that they beat, they got the better of the deal, which that's what you want.
Sure.
Like you don't want to walk away from it going like, oh, freaking guys, I can't believe they got it. It's like the Diggs trade with Minnesota. Minnesota gets Justin Jefferson on the other side. Win-win. Everybody wins.
Yeah, everybody wins. It's just
and Stefan still picks on Minnesota. So like it's almost the exact opposite situation.
That'll be Stefan Diggs. You know how emotional he gets. That's going to be fun in a couple of weeks when Minnesota comes here to Buffalo. Yeah, man, that Eichel goal reminded me of the old days with the Chicago Bulls. I remember Doug Collins used to call it the get the ball to Michael and everyone get the fuck out of the way play. That's the way it looked. But anyway, all right. So this, again, episode 499 in the can here now. Tomorrow, episode 500. I'm actually scheduled to, unless something happens with the Bills trade deadline last second. These guys end up having to cover something. But Tim Graham and Sal Capaccio both going to be with me for episode 500. First two guests I ever had on the podcast. Sal was the first. Tim was the second. So I'm going to have them both on. That should be really cool.
Awesome.
Speaking of cool, dude, again, 499 episodes. Far and away, Joe Yerdon has done more of these with me than anyone else, and it's not even close, man. No Buffalo wins, no Aaron Quinn. I love those guys, but Joe's been with me far more than anyone else, man. I love having you on. It's always fun, and I'll bring back the draft at some point when I don't care if I get embarrassed. But thanks, buddy. Everybody follow Joe. You do that already on Twitter. Make sure you check out Main and State Podcast, man. Have fun covering the game. Again, we're taping this Monday. Joe, busy dude, man. He's leaving his podcast and he's pretty much going right to the arena to get ready for tonight's game. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, Appreciate you got it, man. Happy to be the Tom Hanks of the Talking Buffalo podcast and return all the time.